Hello, this is Pearl, and today I'm going to read Little Pilgrim's Progress, Chapter 24, Talkative. The boys went on, talking happily together, until they came to a part of the plain in which the way of the king was wider than usual. Faithful happened to turn his head, and he saw that another boy was walking on the opposite side of the road. He was a fine-looking lad, and Faithful thought he might be a pleasant companion. So he said, "Are you going to the celestial city?" The boy answered, "Yes." "Then let us walk together," said Faithful. "We are all traveling the same way." "I shall like that very much," replied the boy, and he crossed over the road and began to talk with Faithful. He had a great deal to say about the king and his servants and his laws, and little Faithful felt quite pleased to think of having a new friend who was so good and clever. Presently he waited for Christian, who was walking a little way behind them, and whispered, "Is he not a nice boy? I am sure he must be a very good pilgrim." Little Christian smiled. "Don't you know who he is?" he asked. "No," said Faithful. "I have not seen him before." "Haven't you? Why, he lives in our city. His name is Talkative. He often pretends to be a pilgrim, just to amuse himself. But I did not know that he ever came as far as this." "Is he a bad pilgrim, then?" "I'm afraid he does not love the king," said Christian, "but you will soon find out." Then Faithful ran on again and walked by the side of Talkative. "Perhaps," thought the little pilgrim, "he may not be quite so bad as Christian thinks, and we may be able to persuade him to go with us." But the more the boy talked, the less Faithful liked him, and at last he became quite sure that they could never be friends. It was plain that Talkative was very vain and foolish, and although he praised the king and said how delightful it was to be his servant, Faithful could see that he had no real wish to enter the celestial city, and that he was only pretending to be a pilgrim for the sake of amusing himself. Faithful listened quietly for some time while his companion talked about the king's goodness, and then he said, "I suppose you are very careful to obey all the king's laws." Talkative blushed, for he knew he always did just what he liked, although he was very ready to tell his friends what the king had commanded them to do. He felt vexed with little Faithful for asking him such a question, and answered crossly, "I don't see that it matters to you." "I think it does matter," replied Faithful. "If you talk so much about loving the king, you ought to serve him very well indeed." "How do you know that I don't serve him?" returned Talkative. "I am not sure," said Faithful, "but I am afraid you don't." "I wonder what a little fellow like you has to do with correcting me," cried Talkative in an angry tone. "I am much older than you are." "I didn't mean to correct you at all, but I was not sure if you were a real pilgrim." "A real pilgrim? Of course I am, but I know exactly how it is. Christian told you a lot of stories about me when you ran back to speak to him, and I suppose you believe them all." Faithful did not know what to say, for he could see that Talkative was very angry indeed. So he walked on quietly without speaking. "I don't care at all," said Talkative presently. "If you choose to believe bad things about me, it's your fault, not mine. But I think you are a very rude, disagreeable little boy, and I don't wish to talk to you any more. You can just walk by yourself and leave me to do as I like." He seemed so angry that Faithful made no answer. He let him go on his way alone and waited for Christian, who soon came up to him. "Never mind," said Christian, when he heard what had happened. "I am glad he has not stayed with us, for I don't think he would have done us any good."